In this video, we're going to be talking about how you know what to make in your game and when to make it. And I'm going to be taking you through the process of creating a work breakdown structure, as you can see here on the screen, where you look at what are all the things that we need to have in our game and how do we fill out the details for those things. As this hilarious picture of me shows, as an indie game developer, you wear many hats. You're a project manager, you're a designer, obviously you're a developer coding and implementing the game. You need to be an artist or at least understand what art requirements you've got and set some sort of direction. You need to be doing quality assurance to find bugs and to fix those bugs. And you're going to be a marketer if you want to launch a game and have your game have some sort of commercial success. And mostly it's going to be about just creating your game, but we need to touch on those other elements from time to time because a typical indie pattern is going to look something like this. It goes in a bit of a loop where you have a design, so you think about what am I going to create, and then you create it. You get into development, you implement it, you get your hands dirty with Unity, and then you'll be also adding content. What I mean by that is things like some art assets, some audio assets, some level assets, enemies. So the content is putting the stuff in there, not just creating the functionality. And then you'll tune that. And tuning is sort of design, sort of fits under the design umbrella, but it's really saying what's interesting, what's compelling, what's fun. Is it too fast, too slow? Do I need 2 of those things or 10 of those things? And then you'll look for feedback. And you'll ask people, does this make sense? Do you like it? Is it too fast, too slow? And then based upon the feedback, you'll do some tuning and then you get some more feedback. And then as the loop suggests, you rinse and repeat. And throughout this whole process is you keeping yourself on track and knowing what it is that you need to build as an indie game developer, making your role-playing game. And when it comes to the topic of what are you building, there's a bunch of ways to look at it. If we look at it in terms of the highest level, we're looking at features, such as I need combat, or I need inventory, or I need story. And then one level below that, how I see it, is mechanics. And mechanics are things, for example, spells are ranged attacks that damage enemies. So in our game, we will have this mechanic, which is a ranged attack. And for example, a spell is a type of ranged attack. And then one level underneath that is the tuning. And the tuning might be at level 1, so if my character's level 1, the fireball attack does 6 to 10 damage. And let's look specifically at that, how you plan what it is you're building. For features, we create something called a work breakdown structure, which is what I'm talking to you about a lot in this video. For mechanics, that's where the game design document is particularly useful because we need to talk about, do we do fireballs and do we do lightning strikes and they different? And does fireball do damage to certain enemies and lightning does damage to other enemies? So the mechanics need more of a discussion. And then the tuning, well, the best way to tune is to get in there into your prototype and say, is my character too fast or too slow? I don't want my character huge and the enemy's small. I don't want the enemy's huge, like Shadow of the Colossus, they're huge and the player character is small. So getting into the game and feeling that and playing it. And also spreadsheets. Being a role-playing game, you wouldn't be a role-playing game without some spreadsheeting where we need to have a whole bunch of numbers. What happens at level 2 and level 12 and level 20, and does this enemy have more hit points than that enemy? And we'll need to manage that in a spreadsheet. For now, we're talking at this high level about features so that you know what you're building and you're not getting too stuck in the details, because a lot of the details you just shouldn't know yet because you haven't struck up a relationship with your game. You need to start to make it and feel it. Let's go into the process of creating an work breakdown structure. And for that, I'm using a tool called MindMeister. You can find this online. It's free. You can have a couple of maps for free, and then there's also upgrades to it. There's a million things out there. I'm just using this one because it seemed okay, and it allowed me to share with Ben, and it allowed me to show you guys what I'm doing. You can also use a spreadsheet. You don't have to use a mind mapping tool by any stretch. You can use a Word document. There's a ton of ways for you to do a work breakdown structure. I like an online mind map tool or an electronic mind map tool as opposed to just a whiteboard or a piece of paper because I can move things around very easily and I can group things very easily. It has some limitations, but I like it from that point of view. At the start, the best way I've found to say what are all the things I need to make in this game, first of all, just throw out there what you know already. So if you're using a mind mapping tool like me, you can just hit tab here and then say combat, for example. And in combat, we need to be able to have hit points and attack, different types of attacks. For example, a melee, depending upon where you're from. Ranged attacks as well. Spells, are spells different? Yeah, we'll put spells in there for now. Okay, also we need some inventory. That seems at the higher level. And also we're going to need some character dialogue. Yep, that's important. What else are we doing in our game? Of course, we're going to have some enemies. Enemies might fit over here under combat. And so, actually, no, they fit at this high level. So that's how you start. Just brainstorming your work breakdown structure. Start by knowing, doing what you know, and saying, well, I know my game's going to have combat, so therefore I need to have hit points. Therefore, I need to have strength and dexterity and constitution, if that's what you know already. If you're making a game completely from scratch that had no predecessors, so you're trying to make a game that was entirely unique, no one's ever seen it before, this would be a little bit tougher to do, but we know we're making an RPG, and there's some things you just gotta have in an RPG. You just gotta have combat. The other really cool thing you can be doing at this point is looking at a game similar to yours to get ideas of the little bits and pieces that you need to think about when you're making yours. So this is Torchlight. I've shown you this before, and we're having a look. So at the start, okay, I need a character. Oh, and they've got an idle animation. Just looking at this one screen, we can see a lot. I think we can scroll in. And do we want to scroll in our game? Yes or no? That might be a feature we write down. They've got a pet as a companion. I think I've got the badger in there. Cool. Is that something that we plan to have in our game? If you're like, yep, that's absolutely going in, then you write it in your work breakdown structure. See some idle animations. When I click, you need to have click to move, which is you've been working through that with Ben. And as I move, there's different animation poses. You can see they've got rain, so ambient effects. When I mouse over this guy, he glows. That's a thing. So even just down at this level, you get a lot of really good clues about the stuff that you're going to need to build in your game that they've already shown you. You might say, I hit I to bring up inventory. You might say, I'm going to have inventory or not going to have inventory. And then to get some ideas, remember, we're not cloning this game. We're not copying this game. We're not stealing this game. We're just looking to see, most RPGs have a similar type of thing in them. Let's not try to come up with all those things off the top of our head. So we'll look at them. Okay, there's a health indicator and a mana indicator. This has got mouse over tooltips, you can see. I can scroll back out again. Characters to interact with. There's dialogue and quests. So I've got a quest. Click along here. And at this point, because we're focusing in our early gameplay moment, we're focusing on combat, I'm going to pay particular attention to combat. I click to attack, bang, so I need hit points, a death animation, and then animation when things hit me, so weapon animation, crunch, and I've got down here health potions. So you get the point. This is a great way to go about saying, what are all the things that I'm probably going to need in my game? And be a little bit choosy at this stage. If you just choose everything, then unless you've got a team of 20 or 30 or 50, don't choose everything. Try to be a little bit discerning at this point. So for us, we've said we just can't have a companion. We don't have the time to make a companion like the little badger that was running around there. So from that, as you're playing through and watching, you're going to be populating this and putting more things in. So there's a lot of things that we put in here. So we had... enemies had attacks, obviously. They had things like death animations. They had attack animations. So just something like animations, there's a bunch of those. And it looks like we could group those into a new thing. So we'll say animations. And we'll grab these two animations and we'll pop it under there. And attacks, well, you know what? We're also going to have a... under attacks, there's probably a bunch of different types of attacks. So there's going to be ranged, there's going to be melee. Once you start to put a bunch of things in, look to group them at a high level. Combat, enemies, inventory, character dialogue might fit under quests. So if we create a new one called quests, and under there we can say... We can say character dialogue. I'm not worrying about showing you guys too much how to use this tool, because whichever tool you use, you'll need to figure that out. They're all really simple, the online ones. Change the colors, move things around, zoom in and out as I'm doing. If you're using MindMeister. And so that fits underneath there. What else do we need here? We might need some sort of dialogue pop-up. So pop-up system and so on. And you can see making an RPG, there's a lot in here. So I encourage you at this point, try to scope down, which means try to limit what you're doing as narrow as possible. Don't say I want everything, because that's too hard to make everything. Okay, so this is the start here. I want to show you the one that Ben and I have been working from, that I've been creating recently to guide us in terms of our priorities. And right from the start, it's super important for me that we have a game vision. So underneath game vision, and I'll just show you my groupings here. You're probably like, what were all those groupings? Game vision, movement combat, general game functionality, which includes things like pause menus, saving and loading, sound effects, and so on. World creation, which is levels and so on, characters and story, inventory, and then customization, like character customization, and then some stretch features that you can just dump all the wouldn't it be nice if down in this stretch features area. The good news is you guys will have access to this mind map, so you can see exactly what we've been doing, and you can copy from it if you like. I'll put that in the resources section attached to this lecture. Now, under game vision, I've set in here art direction, player experience, product remarkability, high-level story, and tech stack. And when it comes to the design part of this course, I'm going to be taking you through each of these and showing you how to create those, what you should be thinking about, even if you're not making the art. You as the creator of the project need to say what direction it's heading in, even if you don't create that. And I'm going to be taking you through these when we get to the relevant lecture. Like I've said before, I don't want to bombard you with all of this stuff yet, because too much theory is going to make you get stuck and not work on your project. And it's important for us at the moment that we've got a clear path for movement and combat. Ben's put in player combat movement. He's been putting that in, implementing it for us. And what I've got under here, when I break it out, you can see how detailed it needs to be. I've broken most of my things into assets and functionality. And now I've got this ranked in priority of what I see most important. Now we need to see a little bit of combat. We need to be smacking a guy in the head and see what happens. And so a basic attack is what we need. Special attacks, so abilities and ground pounds and area of effects, we're not going to get to yet. I think that's going to be later in our development cycle. For now, we just need a guy who can run up and bonk someone on the head. So this is a really great way, back to the purpose of this lecture, of what are you building and what are you building next, is always try to have your work breakdown structure prioritized, this, then this, then this, and so on, and put in more details as it becomes more important. So if you look at world creation, I don't think I've got a lot of details down here. Whereas when we go to combat, you can see under player movement, I've got in a bunch of stuff in here because this is what we need right now. And now it's time for you guys to make your own work breakdown structure. So find a game moment similar to yours. If you're looking to make a Skyrim style game, maybe you go look at Skyrim. Remember, you're not making it as big as Skyrim, but you're looking at what elements does Skyrim have in that sort of game. If you're looking to make something more like a Diablo style game, then use that. And then categorize the high-level features. So you saw when I was looking at my work breakdown structure, we had combat, inventory, level creation. Start at that level and try to make sure that you're clear on what are the big buckets that you're going to have in your game. And then break down what you need to know at this point in time, particularly for the game moment that you've specified you're going to make. What are all the different elements and features and mechanics and assets you're going to need at that point? And obviously you can have a look at mine and just take it all from there. If you're following the course quite literally, then just follow what we're doing. That's great. But I really wanted to teach you how to go about creating this yourself. So if you want to deviate from what we're doing, or if you want to make future games, then you know the process. And when you've done that, bonus points is share your top 3 priority features to the discussions. So that's the end of the lecture. Well done on your progress so far. I know this is a pretty heavy topic. Now's time for you to go and create your work breakdown structure.